Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Oxhorn, and welcome to part 2 on vassal settlements. This episode is all about choosing the right settlements to turn into vassals for your raider outposts. In yesterday's video, we lifted up the hood to Fallout 4 and inspected the code that powers raider outposts and vassal settlements, and we learned a lot of really cool things. There are two major things that we need to bear in mind when choosing settlements to turn into vassals. The first is that vassal settlements do not need to be close to your raider outposts. That is a myth perpetuated by Shank himself in Nuka World. I couldn't find a reference to raider outpost proximity for vassal settlements in the code, and based on my experiments and the experiences of many of my viewers, a vassal settlement can be anywhere on the map, and it will still send food to your raider outposts. So proximity doesn't matter. If you go to the Nuka World Red Rocket, if you sided with the raiders and you go and you visit the workshop, simply by visiting the workshop you get the option to choose which raider gang you want to run that raider outpost. But the thing is, there are no other settlements in Nuka World, which means that there are no vassals close to the Nuka World Red Rocket, which means that they get their food from all of the vassals in the rest of the Commonwealth. And the second thing to bear in mind is that vassal settlements will share 50% of the food they generate with your raider outposts. This means that the size of the vassal settlements are important. The size of the settlements that you choose to turn into vassals plays a large role in how you set up your raider outpost and vassal network. I'm going to go over 3 scenarios, and then I'm going to share a map with you that you can use when planning your raider outposts. The first way is to choose one farm, build it up, and have it provide food and water for your entire raider outpost network. This will be hard to do, but it would work. You could choose one farm, like Finch Farm or Abernathy Farm, get 50 to 60 settlers in there, make them all farmers, have dozens of water purifiers so that one settlement is producing thousands of food and thousands of water each day. And that should support all of the rest of the raider outposts. Now you will have to sit down and do the math. You're going to have to figure out exactly how many raiders you want at each raider outpost and how many settlements you want to turn into raider outposts. Once you have that number, you can then figure out how many farmers you're going to need at Abernathy Farms. Each farmer can produce 6 food, and 50% of the food generated by that farm gets shared with your raider outposts. So for example, if your Abernathy farm has 30 settlers, and all 30 of them are assigned to farming, that vassal settlement will produce 90 food each day for your entire raider outpost network. So it's just a matter of sitting down to do the math. The second way to go about this is the minimalist way. This is for people who don't want to do a lot of settlement building before they turn those settlements into vassals. The idea behind it goes that for every raider outpost, or 2, you've got 1 farm producing food. This means you're going to have to sack a whole lot more farms, meaning fewer of the settlements of the Commonwealth can be raider outposts. If you choose this strategy, however, then you don't have to do a lot of settlement building. You can sack the farm as it is, turn it into a vassal, and it'll already support 1 or maybe 2 outposts. For example, the Slog has, 5 farmers farming? That's a potential 15 food each day without doing any work to your Slog settlement. That could certainly support 1 raider outpost, maybe 2. So for this strategy, you would turn into vassals every single settlement that already has settlers living there and farming. We're talking Abernathy Farm, Ten Pines Bluff, Finch Farm, Greentop Nursery, Nordhagen Beach, Oberland Station, Somerville Place, Warwick Homestead, settlements like that already have people living there. Now the third strategy, and the one that I'm going to share a map with you about, is a mix of the former two. It's not completely hands-off. You do have to build up the settlements before you turn them into vassals, but it's not super intensive like the first one. You're not making an Uber settlement. For this strategy, you'll only turn 6 settlements into vassals. If you build them up first so that they're all producing a whole lot of food, you'll still need to do the math. So figure out how many settlements you want to be raider outposts, and then figure out how many raiders each of those settlements supports. That number is the amount of food that your vassal settlements are going to have to produce each day. And you need to make sure that the vassal settlements produce that food each day before you turn them into vassals, because once they become vassals, you no longer have access to the workshop and you can't make improvements. Maybe you're OCD like me, and you like to have this kind of mapped out. And if you're like me, this is what I would recommend. Now, there are some settlements that you simply won't be able to turn into vassals or raider outposts, simply due to the mechanics of the game. They include Bunker Hill, the Boston Airport, the Castle, and I think the ones that come with the DLCs, Vault 88, and the Mechanist's Lair. I could be wrong about those, but on the character that I used to research this, even though I discovered the workshops in both the Mechanist's Lair and Vault 88, it would not come up on my list of settlements to turn into vassals or raider outposts. And the same is true with Covenant for some reason. Even though I killed all the settlers in Covenant and I had access to the workbench, it didn't appear as an available option. But I can't be sure about those. I grayed them out for this particular experiment. So what I did is I tried to find settlements that would work as central hubs. So coming over to the northwest here, Abernathy Farm is the clear choice to become a vassal settlement because it already has settlers. Abernathy is already there with his family, so you can complete the quests there, take it over, and even if you don't build up the settlement at all, it will provide some food for you. It's also a hub location for Sanctuary, Red Rocket Truck Stop, and to a greater extent, Sunshine Tidings and Starlight. It is the closest settlement to those. Over here in the north, really these two are kind of isolated together. Ten Pines Bluff and Outpost Zamonja. I chose Ten Pines to be the vassal because it has some settlers there already. All you have to do is sack the settlement, and then you can get the farmers that are already there to start producing crops for Outpost Zamonja. Over here in the northeastern part of the map, the clear choice is, of course, Finch Farm. This already has Abraham Finch and his family there, so you can sack the settlement, turn it into a vassal, and even if you choose not to build it up, it'll start producing a lot of food for your settlements. Now, there are a lot of settlements that are really close to Finch Farm, and you could simply choose one to turn into a vassal, and it could support all of the ones around it. Or you could choose two. The Slog would be another great choice because it is central and it already has settlers there that can start farming. Greentop Nursery and Nordhagen Beach also already have settlers there that can start farming to support the rest of your chain if you want. But I chose Finch Farm alone since it's nice and central. Moving on to the center of the map, and we've got Oberland Station as the clear choice for the few settlements that are here. It already has settlers there, so all you got to do is sack it, turn it into a vassal, and it'll start producing food. And it can support Grey Garden and Hangman's Alley. Those two are really close to it. Coming down here towards the southern portion of the map, and the settlements are kind of sporadic around here. Again, I've got Vault 88 and the Castle grayed out because I don't think you can turn those into either vassals or raider outposts. And these are all so spread out that I kind of did this arbitrarily. I mean, you could have made Jamaica Plain one and then connected it to Mirkwater and Warwick if you wanted, but I felt like this was going to be the best choice because Somerville Place already has settlers living there. So you just got to sack it, turn it into a vassal, and it could support Egret Tours Marina and the Mirkwater construction site. And of course, the same is true with the Warwick Homestead. Sack the Warwick Homestead, get Roger Warwick to turn into a vassal, and he could support Spectacle Island and, if you really want to stretch it, to Jamaica Plain. It's pretty far away, but it's really the closest settlement to it. So that's what I decided to do with this little layout. If you want this image, I published it and linked to it in the description of this video, so you can use it for reference if you want. By the way, I should quickly mention Far Harbor settlements. I can't get them to show up with Shank. You know, I went to Far Harbor, I made sure to get the workshops, to have access to the workshop, but when I went to Shank and Nuka World, it just simply wasn't an option, so I don't know if I didn't progress far enough in Far Harbor for it to show up, or if I did something wrong, but to my knowledge, the settlements in Far Harbor are not available as raider outposts. I couldn't find any talk of other people using them as raider outposts, so let me know in the comments below if I'm wrong, but I think Far Harbor settlements don't count. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you liked that map I put together. As I said earlier, I am providing a hard copy of this to you. If you want to download it and use it for future reference, feel free. I'm linking to it in the description of this video. Please subscribe for more content like this. I produce a lot of Fallout 4 and Nuka World content. I also have a weekly live show, and I produce live Let's Plays almost every night. So be sure to subscribe to me here on YouTube so that you can join me. If you like what I do and you want a more personal way to support me, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. Patreon subscribers get access to a bunch of cool perks, including access to my private Discord server. But more than anything, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just so glad that you're here. Thanks for watching this video. Please leave a comment in the comment section below. I read all of them and respond to the best ones. And thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow bright and early with a new video.